The garage door stood wide open. That was the instant I realized my late husband's car was missing. 20 years of his dedication had vanished in a single night. My son had sold it to fund a trip to Paris with his wife. Yet one phone call the following morning changed everything. The man on the line claimed he possessed Robert's car, said there was something my husband wanted me to know. Something he had hidden before he passed. My name is Helen Carter. And this is how my late husband managed to save my life and to teach our son and his wife a lesson they will never forget. Before we continue, please take a moment to comment where you're watching from and subscribe to Silver Horizons, a channel for those who believe that life's richest chapters can unfold at any age. Now, let's return to the story. The garage door was open. That was the first thing I noticed as I stood in the kitchen. A mug of coffee cooling in my hands. I stared through the window above the sink. The door rolled upward. The space beyond dim, even in the morning light. Robert never left it open. In 43 years of marriage, he had never once left that door unlatched overnight. But Robert was gone 8 months already. I placed the mug on the counter, walked to the back door, and pushed it open. A breath of spring air met me, unseasonably warm for April. It was the sort of morning when Robert would already be outside, bent over the car with a rag in his hand. I crossed the yard. The grass overdue for mowing, I kept meaning to call someone about it. The concrete felt cold under my slippers. The oil stain at the center of the garage floor looked dark and familiar. 2 decades of the same car resting in the same place had left its signature. Yet now the spot was empty. Only emptiness. I stood there staring at nothing. The workbench along the back wall remained just as Robert had left it. His tools hung neatly on the pegboard, each silhouette outlined in black marker so he'd always know its place. The red toolbox sat closed atop the bench. His work journal lay open beside it, the pages covered in his small, precise handwriting. The car was gone. My chest tightened. I steadied myself against the doorframe, breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth, the same rhythm I had taught my ICU patients for 43 years. Breathe. Think. Act. But I couldn't think beyond the void in front of me. I stepped to the workbench and lifted the journal. The last entry dated 3 weeks before Robert's death. The handwriting looked weary. The letters looser than usual. Almost finished. 20 years on this beauty. Can't wait to teach Helen how to drive her properly. Our retirement road trip begins next summer. I closed the journal and replaced it exactly where it had been. The garage still smelled like him motor oil, worn leather, and that citrus-scented soap he always used. I could almost see him there. Hear the faint hum of his old radio, playing classic rock. His voice joining in whenever he thought I couldn't hear. An engine rumbled outside on Maple Street. I turned. Michael's black BMW slid into the driveway leased. Not owned. He had told me that at Christmas as though it were something to boast about. My son stepped out from the driver's side, 38 years old, and still unable to meet my eyes whenever guilt pressed on him. Even from across the yard, I saw at the slump of his shoulders. His hands buried in his pockets. The passenger door opened. Savannah emerged. Flawless, as always dark. Sleek hair. Designer sunglasses. And clothing that likely cost more than my monthly groceries. She stood beside the car, gazing at me in the shadowed doorway of the garage. Even behind the lenses. I feel está. Michael walked toward me and stopped at the edge of the driveway. Mom. I waited. I need to tell you something. Where's the car? Michael, his jaw tightened. That's what I need to talk about. Where is it? I sold it? The words landed but failed to register. As if he'd spoken a foreign tongue, my mind couldn't yet translate. What I sold it yesterday. He glanced at the empty garage. Then at the ground. I needed the money. Savannah has been planning this Paris trip for months. It's important for her business contacts. I couldn't let her down. The tightness in my chest spread. My hands trembled. So I folded them across my chest. "That was your father's car." It was just sitting there. His voice hardened. Defensive. "Dad's gone." "Mom, you don't even drive it." It was his past tense. Michael finally looked at me. The rims of his eyes were red. Exhausted. "I got a fair price for it, $15,000. That's decent for a car that old." $15,000 for the car Robert had devoted every weekend to restore piece by piece for 20 years. For the car he had vowed would remain in the family. I wanted to shout, to shake my son until he grasped the weight of what he'd done. But decades in the ICU had trained me to keep my tone steady, even when everything inside me cracked. "When did you take it?" "Yesterday afternoon." "You were at the store." He still had his key, the one from when he'd lived here. Before he moved out. Before he met her. I had never asked for it back. And Robert had always left the garage unlocked. Said he liked quick access if an idea struck him. "You should have asked me." "Would you have said yes?" "No. I wouldn't have." Savannah approached then, moving as though she owned the driveway, the yard, the entire neighborhood. She stopped beside Michael and slipped a manicured hand onto his arm. Her nails gleamed scarlet and perfect. "Helen, there's nothing to discuss," she said smoothly. "It's done. The car is sold. We leave for Paris tomorrow." I looked at her, really looked. Married to my son for 2 years. Yet I still knew nothing real about her. Where she grew up. Who her parents were, nothing. Her smile never reached her eyes. "This is between me and my son." I said, "I'm his wife." She replied lightly, "What's between you and him concerns us both." Her tone was pleasant, almost instructional, as though she were explaining something obvious to a slow pupil. Michael needed that money. The car was unused. Selling it made sense. It was his father's. "His father is dead," she said flatly. "Matter of fact, Michael is trying to build a life. We both are. Surely you can understand that." I couldn't trust my voice. I just looked at Michael. He avoided my eyes again. Savannah's hand remained on his arm, possessive. "We'll send you photos from Paris," Savannah added with a practiced smile. "You'd love it there. The architecture. The museums. Very romantic." The casual cruelty of that remark struck me like a slap. Whether she realized it or not, or perhaps she did, it was intentional. Michael shifted uneasily. "We should go. Still need to pack." "Yes." Savannah tugged gently at his arm. "Our flight's early?" They returned to the BMW. Michael looked back once, just once, seeing me standing in Robert's garage. Arms crossed, slippers on. Then he got into the car. Savannah lowered her window. "Take care of yourself." "Helen, we'll see you when we get back." The BMW backed out and disappeared around the corner of Maple Street. I watched until it was gone. Then, I was alone. I stepped back into the garage. Stood in the center over the familiar oil stain. The silence felt heavier without the car. Morning sunlight streamed through the open door, illuminating motes of dust. I picked up Robert's journal again. Open to the final entry, his words about teaching me to drive. About our retirement road trip. About 20 years of meticulous labor, finally complete. His coffee mug still rested on the shelf, stained and worn smooth at the handle. I had washed it after he died, but could never bring myself to put it away. Everything remained except the car, his tools, his bench, his radio. The lingering scent of him, and the raw emptiness where the Shelbys should have been. I closed the journal and pressed it against my chest. The sun felt warmer now. Down the street, a dog barked. A lawnmower droned to life. Ordinary sounds of an ordinary morning. 8 months of widowhood. And I thought I had already shed every tear possible. Yet standing in that garage, clutching Robert's journal and staring at the hollow space our son had left. I felt them rising again. I locked the door, turned off the light, and walked back into the house, the journal still in my hands. The vacancy where the Shelby had belonged looked like an open wound. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. I had been awake since 4, sitting at the kitchen table with Robert's journal open before me, rereading the same page, the one detailing how he replaced the carburetor. His handwriting steady and exact. The phone kept ringing. Unknown number. I nearly ignored it. "Hello, Mrs. Carter," a man's voice. Rough, as if from crying. "This is Jack Nolan, from Nolan Heritage Motors. I have your husband's car." I sat upright. "What, the Shelby? Your son brought it in Wednesday. I need you to come to the dealership right away, if you can. There's something Robert wanted you to know." My mind struggled to process the words. "I don't understand. Robert was my friend, a good friend." His voice cracked. "I was at his funeral. I should have spoken to you then. But I couldn't. I'm sorry. Please. Mrs. Carter, can you come?" I remembered him now vaguely. A man standing at the back of the funeral home. Gray hair, dark suit, slipping away before I could greet anyone. "Where are you?" He gave me the address, the industrial park on the east side of town. I wrote it on the back of an envelope. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I dressed quickly, jeans and a sweater, found my keys, and drove across town, gripping the steering wheel tight. Traffic was light. I passed the hospital where I had worked for 40 years, the parking lot already full. The industrial area spread out in gray concrete and metal. I found Nolan Heritage Motors at the end of a long street, modern, spotless. Rows of vintage cars shimmered behind a chain-link fence in the early sun. A man waited outside the main entrance, silver-haired, perhaps 65, in jeans and a button-down shirt. He had been expecting me. I parked and stepped out. He approached immediately, eyes red-rimmed. "Mrs. Carter, thank you for coming." "You're Jack, yes." He extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, though faintly trembling. "I'm Jack Nolan. Your husband saved my life 25 years ago." I waited. He looked down, drew a deep breath. "I needed a loan to start this business. No bank would consider me bad credit. No collateral, only a dream and a lot of nerve." He lifted his eyes. "Robert co-signed for me. He risked his credit and savings for a stranger. I repaid every cent. But what I owed him went far beyond money. He never told me. He wouldn't have. That's who Robert was." Jack wiped at his eyes. "This dealership exists because of him. I built a good life. All because your husband believed in me when no one else did." He swallowed hard. "When your son brought that Shelby in Wednesday, I recognized it instantly. Robert talked about that car every time we met, car shows, auctions, even pictures on his phone. He was so proud. Michael said he sold it." I murmured, "He did to me." Jack's expression twisted. "Your son had no idea what he was selling." I asked if he knew its worth. He said 15,000 sounded fair. My stomach turned. "What is it really worth?" Jack met my gaze. "Around $180,000. It's a documented 1967 Shelby GT 500, one of 2,048 ever produced. Robert restored it to museum standard. The figure didn't compute. 180,000, yes. Ma'am, Michael sold it for 15. I sank onto the curb. Jack joined me silently. For a while, neither of us spoke. "I bought it from him," he said at last. "Paid the 15,000 because he was desperate," mentioned the Paris trip with his wife. "But Mrs. Carter, that car was never mine to keep." "Why tell me this?" "Because Robert made me promise 2 years ago." Jack rose and offered his hand to help me up. Come inside. There's something you need to see. He led me through the building to the service bay, vast. Spotless white floors under bright lights. 3 cars rested beneath protective covers. Jack stopped at the last, lifted the cover away. The Shelby gleamed burgundy paint flawless, chrome glinting. I approached slowly, laid my palm on the hood. The metal felt cool, smooth. I could sense Robert in every contour. I opened the driver's door and sat. The leather smelled like home. The steering wheel was worn where his hands had gripped it. Jack leaned against the frame. 2 years ago, Robert asked me to help him install something, a hidden compartment. I looked up. Why, he said, if anything ever happened to him, I was to make sure you found it. Made me swear. He gestured to the dashboard behind the radio. I never looked inside. He told me, this is for her and only her. My heart pounded. Jack showed me how to release the panel press here. Pull there. The radio face loosened, revealing a narrow, dark cavity. He stepped back, leaving me alone. I reached in, my fingers brushed paper. I drew out a thick manila folder. Beneath it lay a sealed envelope with my name in Robert's handwriting. And at the bottom, a small wooden box containing a key. I opened the envelope first. The page inside was filled with his familiar script, dated 2 months before his death. Helen, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you while I was alive. You would have wanted to face it together. And I know that, but I needed to protect you until I had proof. I've been investigating Savannah for 18 months. She's not who she claims to be. Her real name is Laura Kingsley. She's done this before. At least twice. Inside this folder is everything I've gathered: photos, documents, contacts for her previous victims. Their stories are identical. She targets men with aging parents and inherited assets. Her next move will be our home. Helen, that's her pattern. She'll convince Michael you're declining, that you need care, that the house should be sold. Then she'll vanish with the money. I confronted her once. Carefully. She's skilled. Michael won't believe me without absolute proof. And I don't have it yet. The key in this box belongs to our safe deposit box at Pacific First Bank Box 447. Inside are stock certificates I bought in 1994 for a patient's son starting a company. Check their value. You're secure financially. Jack Nolan knows to call you if anything happens to this car. Trust him. Protect yourself. Protect our son. He's a victim too. I love you. I'm still protecting you. Robert? I read it twice. My hands trembling. Robert had known. He had spent 18 months investigating Savannah and died before finishing. I opened the folder. Inside were photographs: Savannah in a wedding gown beside an older man with gray hair. Another photo. Another wedding. Another groom. Marriage certificates. Laura Kingsley married Stephen Walsh. Phoenix, Arizona, June 2019. Laura Kingsley married Patrick O'Rourke. Tampa, Florida, March 2021. Newspaper clippings. Local man reports elderly mother's life savings stolen by daughter-in-law. Family business sold amid suspected fraud. Pages of Robert's notes. Observations about Savannah's behavior. Questions she had asked about our house. My health. Our finances. All dated and timed. At the back were contact numbers for Stephen Walsh in Phoenix and Patrick O'Rourke in Tampa. Robert's final line read, "Need irrefutable proof before telling Michael. He won't believe without it." She's too skilled. If you're reading this, please finish what I started. Protect our son. I closed the folder and hugged it to my chest. 8 months of believing I knew every detail of our life together, gone. He had carried this burden alone. The tears came then, harsh and uncontrollable, shaking me to the core. I sat in Robert's car, holding his investigation, and cried for all he had tried to do. Jack returned after a few minutes, standing quietly in the doorway. He didn't speak, only waited. I wiped my face, stepped out, and looked at him. He was protecting me. Even after he died. Jack nodded. That's who Robert was. I need to call these men Stephen and Patrick. I need to know what happened to them. You can use my office, he said. Take all the time you need. I looked at the Shelby, the car Robert had spent 20 years rebuilding, the secret compartment he'd crafted with Jack, the investigation he'd left for me to complete. She's not getting away with this. No? Jack said quietly. She's not. She had been patient, attentive, and endlessly kind. The kind of woman who made a grieving man feel visible again. Within 6 months, they were married. Stanley's mother voiced quiet worries. Saying something about Savannah didn't feel right, but he brushed it off, assuming it was simple overprotectiveness. After the wedding, the subtle comments began. Your mother seems slower lately, doesn't she? She forgot my name yesterday. Is that normal? I'm worried about her driving. What if she gets hurt? Stanley began to notice things he had never paid attention to before. What had once been normal signs of aging suddenly looked like decline. Savannah started leaving articles on dementia, on fall injuries, on elder care strategically placed where Stanley would find them. Over the months, she quietly built a narrative his mother was unsafe. Then she discovered a perfect memory care facility, supposedly the best in the state, costing $20,000 every month. The only way to afford it, she said, was to sell his mother's home. Stanley convinced his mother it was for her protection. She agreed, reluctantly, and sold the house she had lived in for 42 years. The sale brought in $280,000. The proceeds went into a joint account his name and Savannah's together. Only a few months after the wedding, his mother moved into the facility. 2 weeks later, Savannah vanished. The account was empty. Every penny gone. She had changed her number, left no forwarding address. Stanley filed police reports and tried to trace her, but the money had been withdrawn legally from their joint account. Technically, it wasn't even a crime. His mother passed away 6 months later. Stanley's voice cracked when he told me. She kept asking when she could go home. I kept telling her soon, but there wasn't a home anymore and no money to buy her one. I closed my eyes. I'm so sorry. Mom was fine. Mrs. Carter. A little forgetful, but fine. She didn't need that place. She needed her home. He hesitated, then added, whatever Savannah is telling your son about you, don't believe it. Write everything down. She'll begin small, tiny remarks about you forgetting things, feeling tired, and then she'll escalate. Thank you for warning me. Stop her, Stanley said urgently. Please. Don't let her do to another family what she did to mine. I hung up and stared at the phone in silence. Jack brought me a glass of water. I drank, steadied myself, then dialed the second number. George Murphy. The man answered immediately. I introduced myself the same way as before. When I said Savannah's name, he sighed heavily. Yeah. I've been waiting for this call. George was 61. His story was different in detail, but identical in pattern. He had met Savannah at his father's funeral in early 2021. She claimed she was there to support a friend, but sought him out afterward. Offered condolences. Said she knew what grief felt like. She told him she had lost someone too. They talked for hours, and soon she became his comfort through the darkness. A month later, they started dating. His friends said it was too soon. He didn't care. Savannah made the grief bearable. 8 months later, they married. George's father had owned a small auto repair shop for 40 years. George inherited it, but didn't want to keep it too many memories. Savannah suggested selling. It's too much stress. She told him, sell it. Let's take the money. Travel. Heal together. Start fresh. It sounded reasonable. He sold the shop for $195,000. The money went into a joint account. 3 days after the check cleared, Savannah disappeared. Completely gone. Using credit card records, George traced her to Costa Rica. But by the time he arrived, the funds had been laundered through multiple accounts impossible to recover. She targets men with aging parents and family assets. George told me grimly, that's her specialty. She studies them in advance, knows everything before she even meets them. He hesitated. Does your son have access to your home or your finances? Not yet. I said, but she's preparing the ground. Then you still have time? Stop her before she gets him to sign anything. After I hung up, Jack and I sat in silence. Finally, he said, Robert suspected all of this. He came to me 6 months before he died, asked for help. Said he had a friend, a private investigator named Peter Coleman. They were working together. Why didn't Robert tell me? I whispered. He wanted airtight proof. Jack said, he told me Michael was too in love to believe otherwise. Jack opened his desk drawer and handed me a card. Peter Coleman. Private investigations. He's been waiting for your call. I tucked the card into my purse. First, I need to go to the bank. Pacific First Bank was across town. I drove there with Robert's investigation file on the passenger seat and the small wooden box with the key in my bag. It was a busy Friday afternoon, people cashing checks, depositing pay, going about their lives. I asked for access to the safe deposit boxes. The manager, a woman in her 50s, led me to the vault box 447. The key fit perfectly. Inside was a single envelope. I opened it carefully. Inside lay stock certificates in a plastic sleeve, supporting documents, and a folded letter addressed to me. Helen. Robert had written, I bought this stock in 1994 as a favor to a patient. His son was starting a tech company and needed investors. I gave him $5,000, never expecting anything in return. The patient passed away the next year, and I forgot about the certificates. I found them last month while sorting files and looked up the company. I nearly fainted. These shares are worth more than we ever saved. This is for you, for our future, for your security. If you're reading this inside the safe deposit box, something has happened to me. Sell them when you're ready. Live well. Travel. Stay independent. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. You're taken care of. Robert. I took the certificates to the manager. Can you tell me what these are worth? She checked her computer. Her eyes widened. Mrs. Carter. Cortex Solutions went public last year. These shares are currently valued around $342,000. I sat down abruptly. The manager brought me water. Are you all right? My husband bought these. I murmured. She pulled up the purchase record. Bought May of 1994 for $5,000. The company remained private for 30 years, then went public. The stock price has climbed sharply, $342,000 now. Robert had left me a safety net I never imagined existed. For the first time, I had resources, leverage, power. I could fight Savannah on equal footing. The next morning, Saturday, I met Peter Coleman at a cafe near the hospital. Jack had called him ahead of time. Peter was 55, with gray at his temples and a deliberate, disciplined air, a man who saw every detail. He arrived with folders and took a seat across from me in the booth. Robert was my friend, he said. When I heard about his death, I wondered when Savannah would make her move. You kept investigating, Robert. made me promise not to contact you unless she acted against you. He didn't want to scare you with unverified suspicions. Peter opened his folder and spread out papers. I kept my eyes on him while he explained. He had compiled digital traces from the last 3 months, Savannah active on caregiver forums under false names, posting questions about convincing elderly people to accept help, about assisted living costs, browsing properties in Costa Rica. He also found financial evidence credit cards issued in Michael's name, totaling $32,000 in debt, spent on designer clothing, fine dining, and luxury hotels in Paris. Michael's salary as an office manager is $65,000 a year. Peter said, "That's not enough to sustain this lifestyle. She's burning through borrowed money. Money he doesn't even realize he owes yet." Peter laid out a timeline drawn from her prior scams, Phase 1 Paris trip. She builds the dream and makes him feel inadequate. Phase 2, next 2 or 3 months. She starts expressing concern about you. Phase 3 months 4 to 6. She builds the case for assisted living. Phase 4 months 6 to 8. She convinces him to sell your house. "My house is fully paid off," I said quietly. "It's worth around $320,000. "Exactly," Peter replied. Her total score would exceed $350,000. He shut the folder. She's in the setup stage right now. When they return from Paris, she'll begin the campaign in earnest. Can the police stop her? Not yet. She hasn't committed a crime here. Her previous frauds were in Arizona and Florida. Until she steals or forges something in this state, law enforcement can't intervene. So we wait for her to hurt us. We prepare, Peter said firmly. Document everything. When she acts, we'll be ready. But Michael must see the truth himself. If you tell him directly, she'll claim you're paranoid. He has to discover it. I understood. My son would never believe me until the evidence came from his own hands. That night, I sat at the kitchen table making notes of everything I had observed from Savannah over the past 2 years. 2 months ago, Michael asking where I kept the house deed. 6 weeks ago, Savannah taking pictures of every room during a visit. 1 month ago, Michael asking if I had forgotten lunch plans that never existed. 3 weeks ago, Savannah remarking on how tired I looked. 2 weeks ago, a brochure for Sunset Hills Senior Living slipping from her purse. The pattern was clear, carefully built over months. She was scripting a version of me that appeared to be deteriorating, setting Michael up to believe his mother needed help. I thought of the stock certificates, and of why Robert had kept them safe at the bank, but hidden the investigation file inside the car. It made perfect sense now. The bank was secure and fireproof, a vault for value. The car was private, the one place Savannah never entered. She had no interest in tools or engines, only in appearances. The car had been Robert's sanctuary, his secret space. He had thought of everything. I closed my notebook. Outside, the spring dusk was warm, and Robert had protected me in every possible way, left me money, evidence, and people I could trust. Now, it was my turn to protect our son. They returned from Paris on a Tuesday, both sun-kissed. Though Michael looked worn despite the holiday, I invited them for dinner. I played my role perfectly, serving pot roast, Robert's favorite, and Michael's childhood comfort meal. They arrived at 6. Savannah wore clothes I had never seen: silk blouse, designer jeans, an expensive bay. I hugged Michael at the door. He held on longer than usual. Savannah's embrace was brief, staged. We sat around the same kitchen table where I had raised Michael, the same chairs Robert had refinished 20 years ago. Savannah took charge of the conversation immediately. Paris was wonderful. She began. The hotel in the Marais was stunning. Lunch near the Louvre. Dinner at a place I can't even pronounce. She painted pictures of the life they deserved, the one they should have. It was amazing, Savannah said. But it made me realize how much we're missing. Michael worked so hard, and we have so little to show for it. She looked straight at me when she said it. The meaning was obvious. I kept my expression calm. Passing the potatoes, Michael jumped in. Mom, you should travel too. See the world? Maybe someday. I said. Savannah leaned forward. Helen, this house is really too big for one person. Have you thought about downsizing something more manageable? There it was, the first direct strike. I'm managing just fine, I replied evenly. This is my home. Savannah's smile was pleasant. Practiced. We just worry about your safety. The stairs. The yard work. It's a lot at your age. Michael nodded. We worry about you here alone. Mom. I noticed the pronoun. We. Not I. Savannah's voice through his mouth. I appreciate your concern. But I'm fine, I said. Savannah let it drop, but I caught the calculation in her eyes. The seeds were planted. Next time, she would press harder. After dinner, we moved to the living room for coffee and the apple pie I'd baked. Savannah excused herself, said she needed the restroom, and disappeared for 10 minutes. After 5, I followed. I found her upstairs near Robert's old office. The bathroom door behind her was open and empty. She jumped when she saw me. Oh, I got turned around. This house has so many rooms. The bathroom is downstairs, I said evenly, where it's always been. She laughed lightly, touching my arm. Of course. Silly me. Tumugvain. I escorted her back downstairs without another word. They left an hour later. Take care of yourself. Helen, Savannah said with a smile. We'll visit again soon. Michael hugged me. Goodbye. Love you. Mom. I watched them drive off, then went straight to my notebook, writing every detail while it was fresh. Wednesday morning. I called Michael. I need to talk to you. Can you come by, just you? What's it about your father, something I found in his things? A pause. Savannah and I don't keep secrets. Mom, this is between you and me. Please. Another pause. All right. I'll come this afternoon. I have to tell her where I'm going. That's fine. He arrived at 3. Alone. As promised, but nervous. I had coffee ready, and Robert's file open on the table. Michael's eyes locked on it. His posture tensed. Mom, if this is about the car again, sit down. Please. He sat, arms crossed, defensive. I took a breath, using my calm, clinical voice, the same one I had used in emergency rooms for decades. Before I show you anything, I need you to listen. Really listen. This feels like an ambush. It's protection. I handed him Robert's letter first. He read silently, the color draining from his face. Dad investigated Savannah for 18 months before he died. His reaction came fast anger. Danielle. Dad never liked her. He was paranoid. This is ridiculous. Look at the evidence, I said, spreading the photographs across the table. Savannah in 2 different weddings, beside 2 different men. The marriage certificates. Savannah Cortland married Stanley Wright. Savannah Cortland married George Murphy. Michael stared, shaking his head. This could be anyone. Same name. That's all. Call them, I said, sliding the paper toward him. Ask about their wives. He picked it up. Read the 2 phone numbers. Stanley Wright in Phoenix, George Murphy in Tampa, written in Robert's careful script. You want me to call strangers? They're not strangers. They were married to your wife before you. Michael pushed up from his chair, pacing. This is insane. Savannah, wouldn't she loves me? Then, prove me wrong. I said softly. Call them. Prove your father wrong. He crushed the paper in his hand. I'm not doing this. He turned toward the door. Michael. Please. He spun back. Why are you doing this? Can't you just let me be happy? My voice broke. Because your father died trying to protect you, and I won't let his final months be for nothing. He slammed the door and drove off. I didn't know if he would call the numbers or run straight to her. Either way, the choice was his. The waiting was unbearable. I sat at the kitchen table. Unable to eat or focus, Peter called at 8. How did it go? He was angry. I don't know what he'll do. Give him time. The truth needs to settle. But time felt like it was slipping away. At midnight, the phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. Michael. His voice was wrecked. Trembling. I called them. Mom. I called both. He was crying. What did they say? Everything. Stanley's mother. George's father's shop. It's all the same story. My heart cracked for him. I'm so sorry. I went home after I left your place. I was furious, he said, voice shaking, but I kept thinking about Dad. Those certificates. So I tested her. Just simple questions. What happened? I asked where she grew up. Her maiden name. Her family. Her answers were different, not slightly. Completely. Different town. Different college. Different everything. What did you do? I pushed further, asked about the credit cards Peter found. The ones in my name? Her face changed like a mask slipping. She said they were business investments. That I wouldn't understand. I asked what business. Asked to see the statements. She said she didn't have to prove anything. That I should trust her. Het took a shaki breath. I kept pushing. Said I wanted to see proof they're in my name. She packed a bag right then. No more pretending. Called me weak. Said I was exactly what Dad said. Just like all the others. His voice broke. She walked out. Drove away. Won't answer her phone. Stay put. I said, I'm calling Peter. I hung up and dialed immediately. Peter answered on the first ring. I'm already tracking her through the cards, he said. She checked into the airport Marriott an hour ago. She's leaving. Made several cash withdrawals, around 12,000 total, and booked a flight. He paused. Mexico City. 6 a.m. Departure. One way. My stomach lurched. She's running. Yes, but I found something else. Savannah Cortland is a stolen identity. The real Savannah died in a car crash in 2018. This woman's real name is Linda Marsh. She's wanted for fraud in 2 other states under different aliases. Can the police stop her? I've already contacted detectives in Arizona and Florida. They're issuing a warrant. If we move now, we can catch her at the airport before she boards. What do you need Michael's cooperation? A statement about the fraudulent cards. Can he do that? Yes? I said firmly. I'll make sure of it. At 3 in the morning, we gathered at my house, Peter, Michael, and me. Michael looked hollow, red-eyed, sleepless. He sat at the kitchen table while Peter explained, Savannah's flight leaves at 6. Police are ready to arrest her on existing warrants. But we need your statement about the forged credit cards. It will go public, Peter warned. You'll have to testify. Are you ready for that? Michael looked at me. What would Dad do? Your father spent his last months building a case against her. I said softly. He died before finishing it. He'd want you to stop her. This isn't about revenge. I said softly. It's to make sure she never does this to anyone else. Michael was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Call the police. Let's go to the airport." We climbed into Peter's car and drove through the sleeping city. It was 4 in the morning. The streets dark, except for the pale halos of street lamps. Michael sat in the back seat, eyes fixed on nothing, his face blank. I reached behind me and took his hand. He gripped it tightly, like a child clinging to the last thing that made sense. By the time we reached the airport, dawn was only beginning to wake. Coffee shops were unlocking their doors, fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow on the polished floors. Travelers rolling suitcases with tired faces. We stood behind a wide column near the security checkpoint. Peter placed us where we could see clearly but stay unnoticed. 2 detectives in plain clothes waited close to the scanners. Michael hadn't spoken since we left the house. I stayed near him, close enough for him to feel I was there. 5:30. The security line grew. Then I saw her. Savannah, hair flawless. Designer coat. 2 large suitcases. Sunglasses even at this hour. She looked like someone off to an exclusive vacation. Calm and poised. Phone in one hand. Boarding pass in the other. She moved through the line with effortless confidence. Peter's voice was barely a whisper. "There she is." The detectives moved at the same moment. "Ma'am, we need a word." Savannah turned, surprised for only a heartbeat. Then she smiled. "Is there a problem?" Officers, one detective, lifted his badge. "We have a warrant for your arrest." Linda Marsh. The smile faltered. "I don't know who that is." "My name is Savannah Carter. Please step aside." "Ma'am." Her eyes flicked around quickly, calculating escape routes, until she noticed the second detective blocking the exit. Then she bolted. Her suitcases fell. Her heels clattered against the tile before she kicked them off, running barefoot in her stockings across the gleaming floor. She didn't make it 20 feet before airport security tackled her beneath the departure board. "Get off me! I didn't do anything," she screamed, struggling as onlookers froze mid-step. Phones raised to record. Officers pinned her, handcuffed her wrists, and read her rights while she writhed and cursed. One detective opened her luggage right there by the security gate. The first suitcase held clothes. Toiletries. Nothing unusual. The second contained thick stacks of cash, later confirmed to be $48,000 bundled with rubber bands. A passport with her photo but another name. Linda Brennan. And a small hard drive, along with banking documents. The detective held up the passport. "Care to explain this?" Savannah spat at him. They dragged her upright. She was still fighting when she saw us, Michael and me, standing roughly 30 feet away. She went still. Her eyes locked on us. Then her face twisted into fury. "You," she hissed, lunging forward before the officers restrained her. "You did this," Michael flinched. "You pathetic fool," she screamed. "Weak. Stupid. Just like all the others. You actually thought someone like me would want you. You're nothing." Nothing. I stepped in front of Michael, just a small movement. But enough. Savannah's eyes shifted to me, blazing. "And you interfering old woman. This was mine. My score. 3 years I spent on this. You should have minded your own business and died already." Her voice echoed across the terminal. People stared, filming, whispering. He didn't move, didn't speak, just kept a hand on my son's arm. The officers dragged her away, her shouts fading behind the security doors until there was only silence and the distant hum of travelers resuming their routines. Michael stood frozen, shaking. "Let's go home," I said quietly. "Två växtlotter." We sat in the police station, giving formal statements. Detective Alvarez explained what they had uncovered. Savannah's real name was Linda Marsh. Born in Ohio, she had begun conning people in her 20s, small schemes at first. then escalating to identity theft and elder fraud. The name Savannah Cortland was stolen. The real Savannah Cortland had died in a car crash 6 years earlier. So far, 5 previous victims had been found 2 before Stanley. The pattern stretching back almost a decade. Charges were filed in 3 states: Arizona, Florida, and here, identity theft, fraud, forgery, and theft by deception. The prosecutors expected a plea bargain, 12 to 15 years in federal prison. Stanley Wright and George Murphy's cases were reopened with the new evidence, giving them a chance to reclaim some of their losses through civil suits. Michael's fraudulent credit card debt was nearly erased. The banks accepted the fraud claims. A month later, Michael showed up at my door carrying 2 suitcases. "Can I stay here for a while?" "Of course," I said. He took his old room, the one from high school posters, still on the wall. Football trophies still on the shelf. His marriage was annulled. Not just divorced, it had never been legally valid under her stolen name. He started therapy twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Some days he cooked breakfast, helped with chores, even smiled a little. Other days, he barely spoke, retreating into silence. I didn't press him. I just made his favorite meals, kept coffee warm, left lights on. Decades as a nurse had taught me that healing was never linear. It was uneven, painful, and slow. 2 months after the airport, the prosecutor called. Savannah Linda had accepted the plea deal, 12 years in federal prison. I told Michael over dinner. He only nodded. That Saturday, I found him in the garage sitting on Robert's old work stool, tears streaming down his face. "I found this on the bench," he said thickly, holding the work journal open. He pointed to a page filled with Robert's tidy handwriting. "Taught Michael to change the oil today. He's 12, old enough to learn. His hands are still small but careful. Listen to every word. So proud of him." Michael's hands trembled. Another entry a few pages later, Michael came by to help with the engine rebuild. We worked all afternoon. Barely talked. Didn't need to. "These are the days I'll remember." "I hardly remember that," Michael whispered. Working on the car with him, I was so young. I sat beside him on the bench. He cherished those days. I said, talked about them all the time. I sold his car. Michael said, voice cracking, the car he spent 20 years on for $15,000 to impress a woman who was destroying us. "You didn't know." "I should have." He tried to warn me. In those last months, he kept asking about her, about money, about our plans. I thought he was just being controlling. He wiped his face. "The last time we spoke, we fought about her." I told him to back off. A week later, he died. "He never apologized." My throat ached. "He knew you loved him." Michael shook his head. "How could he? I chose her over him. Over you. Over everything he taught me." I pulled a letter from my pocket, the one Robert had written about needing proof before confronting our son. I'd been carrying it, waiting for this moment. "Read this." Michael took it and read silently Robert's words about not wanting to break his heart without evidence. About loving him. About understanding that Michael, too, was a victim. He knew. I said, "He never blamed you?" He understood exactly how she worked. Michael broke completely, then deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere ancient. I held him as I had when he was a boy, letting him cry until there was nothing left. We stayed in the garage a long time, surrounded by Robert's tools. His radio, the scent of oil and leather, the atmosphere he'd left behind. When the tears stopped, Michael wiped his eyes and whispered, "I wish the car were still here. I'd learn everything about it the way Dad wanted me to." I said nothing, just squeezed his shoulder. He closed the journal gently and set it back on the bench, exactly where Robert had kept it. Together we walked toward the house. Evening shadows stretched long. Spring giving way to summer. The air was thick and warm. Inside, I made dinner. Michael set the table without being asked. The house felt different, no longer hollow, not yet whole, but healing. A week after the sentencing, I quietly paid off Michael's remaining debt, $5,000. The bank hadn't forgiven. I wrote the check and never mentioned it again. The stock Robert had left me still felt unreal, $342,000. More than we'd saved in our entire marriage. I thought about what to do with it. Stanley Wright came to mind, his mother dying heartbroken in a facility she never needed. And George Murphy, his father's garage gone after 40 years of work. I mailed each of them a check for $10,000 with a handwritten note for your mother's memory from someone who understands. Helen Carter. For myself, I chose to stay in the house, maybe travel a little short trips. Nothing extravagant. Stay independent. Just as Robert wanted. 2 months after the airport, on a warm Saturday morning, I heard an engine rumble outside. Deep. Powerful. Unmistakable. I looked through the kitchen window. The Shelby sat in my driveway, burgundy paint gleaming in the sun. Jack Nolan stepped out from the driver's seat, smiling. My heart clenched. Michael, upstairs. Had already heard it. I heard his footsteps pounding down the stairs. We both stepped out onto the porch. Jack waved, bringing her home where she belongs. Michael stared at the car, speechless. Jack walked up. Keys in Humt. This was never mine. Mrs. Carter. Robert built it for you. I tried to find words, but you paid Michael $15,000. Jack shook his head. This car's worth more than money. Robert would have wanted you to have it and for Michael to learn it. That's what matters. Michael's voice was rough. I sold it. I threw it away. You were a victim, too, Jack said gently. Your dad knew that. That's why he built the case to protect you. He pressed the keys into my hand. Robert told me once, this car was never really his. It was always for his family. For the people he loved. He gestured toward the garage. Want help backing her in? We opened the garage door together. Jack eased the Shelby inside, parking it in the exact spot it had left months before. The familiar oil stain still marked the floor. The engine shut off, and silence filled the space. Then the scent returned: motor oil, aged leather. Robert. Jack stepped out, looking at the car for a long moment. He'd be proud of you, he said quietly, for stopping her, for protecting your son. He looked at Michael. And he'd be proud of you for coming back, after coffee. Jack hugged us both and left. Michael and I stood in the garage, the Shelby between us. "Can't believe it's back," he whispered. "Neither can I." He ran his hand over the hood, the paint shining under the light. "I don't deserve this. Robert thought you did." I said, "That's enough." 3 months later, on a calm Sunday morning, we began. Michael brought Robert's journal to the garage. I carried 2 mugs of coffee. We opened the hood and stared down at the engine Robert had restored piece by piece. "I don't even know where to start," Michael said. I flipped through the journal, finding the page marked "Teaching Michael." Robert's handwriting was neat and deliberate. "Start with the oil." I read aloud. "Check it first. Every time. Before you drive her, make sure she's ready." Michael pulled the dipstick, checking it exactly as the notes described. His hands were steady now, months of therapy visible in each movement. We spent the morning following Robert's instructions, checking fluids, inspecting filters, testing systems. It was physical, methodical work. With each hour, Michael's confidence grew. I could see Robert in the way he moved. The focus. The gentle precision with tools. By afternoon, Michael was smiling, truly smiling for the first time in months. "I forgot how much I loved this," he said. "Being here. Using my hands. Your father loved these days with you." I said. "I remember more now," he whispered. The way he'd explain everything twice. The way he'd let me try even when I messed up. He closed the hood carefully. "I'm going to take care of this car the way he wanted." "We'll take care of it," I corrected. 4 months after Jack brought the Shelby home, I decided it was time. A bright Saturday morning. Spring turning towards summer. I stood in the garage holding the keys. Michael joined me. "You ready?" "I think so." We climbed in, Michael in the passenger seat. Me behind the wheel. The leather was cool beneath me. The steering wheel smooth, where Robert's hands had rested for 20 years. I adjusted the mirrors, checked everything as the journal instructed, then turned the key. The Shelby roared to life, a deep rumble that I felt through my chest. The sound of Robert's patience. His craft. His love. I eased it out of the garage. Michael's hand rested on the door handle, nervous but trusting. We drove down Maple Street. Windows open. Warm air sweeping through. The engine purring smoothly. Michael laughed. Dad would lose his mind right now in the best way. "He taught me to drive when I was 17. He said. I stalled 6 times. He never lost patience. This is easier." I smiled. We drove aimlessly past the hospital where I had worked, past the high school where Michael played football, just driving. The Shelby moved flawlessly. Every shift and curve the result of Robert's 20 years of devotion. After an hour, I turned back home, guiding the car into the driveway and slowly into the garage. It fit perfectly, like it had never left. I shut off the engine, and the quiet that followed was peaceful, full. "Dad would be proud of you," Michael said softly. "Of us," I replied. That evening, we made dinner together. Michael chopped vegetables the way his father used to. The house was quiet but no longer empty. Through the window, I could see the garage, the gleam of the Shelby, the outlines of Robert's tools hanging neatly on their board, his journal resting on the bench. I thought of his letter. "I'm still protecting you." He always would be. So that's my story. Would you have been able to forgive your child for selling something that precious? Tell me in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.